10 years had passed since the day the Galactic Council discovered that humanity had scattered across the stars. 10 years of legal battles, diplomatic negotiations, and slowly changing attitudes. Now the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy had finally arrived. Ambassador Claire Hudson stood before the full assembly of the Galactic Council. She wore a simple blue suit, her gray hair pulled back in a practical style. She had been chosen to represent humanity not because she was the loudest voice or the most aggressive negotiator, but because she understood how to listen and how to find common ground. The chamber was packed. Every species with a seat on the council was present. This vote had been delayed, debated, and argued over for years. But today, finally, they would decide. Would humanity be accepted as a full member of the Galactic Council? Or would they remain outsiders forever? High Arbiter Zelmoth called the chamber to order. Her crystalline form seemed older now, worn by years of difficult decisions. The vote is complete. With a majority of 73%, the Galactic Council formally recognizes humanity as a full member species, with all rights and responsibilities therein. The chamber erupted. Some members applauded, others sat in angry silence. But the decision had been made. Humanity was no longer an outsider. They were part of the galactic community. Claire allowed herself a small smile. It had been a long journey from those early days when humanity had taken their desperate gamble and left Earth behind. 10 years of proving themselves, of showing that they could contribute to galactic civilization rather than threaten it. Later, at the reception following the vote, Ambassador Thexelar approached her. The Vorian had been humanity's fiercest critic in the early days, but time and evidence had changed his views. "Congratulations, Ambassador Hudson," he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting he had learned. "Though I must say your species has made quite a mess of our carefully ordered galaxy." Claire laughed and shook his hand. "Order is overrated, Ambassador. Progress requires a little chaos." "Your species has taught us something valuable," Thexelar admitted. The council had grown comfortable. "We believed that our way was the only way, that new species must be guided and controlled. You proved us wrong. We just did not want to wait 100 years for you to decide if we deserve to exist," Claire said. "No offense, none taken. Tell me, was it all planned? The exodus, the legal strategy, the rapid colonization? Or did some of it just happen?" Claire considered her answer carefully. There were plans going back decades. Different scenarios, different approaches. But the core principle was always the same. Humanity would control its own destiny. We had learned enough galactic history to know that waiting for others to grant us freedom was a losing game. She gestured to the star map displayed on the chamber's wall. Human colonies glowed in blue, mixed among the territories of dozens of other species. Look at it now. Human colonies, Vorian science stations, Xerian meditation temples, Krell industrial complexes, all coexisting. Trade routes that did not exist before, cultural exchanges, joint research projects. We did not just expand into the galaxy, Ambassador. We helped open it up. On a colony world called New Horizon, a teacher named Gary Foster was giving a history lesson to a classroom full of children. Some were human. Others were Vorian, Xerian, Krell, and species from across the galaxy. This mixing of species in schools was becoming common in human space, and other regions were starting to copy the model. "Why did humans leave Earth so suddenly?" asked a young Vorian student, his 3 eyes wide with curiosity. Gary pulled up images of the old council debates on his display screen. "They left because they understood something important. In life, you cannot always wait for permission to pursue your dreams. Sometimes you have to take action and deal with the consequences later." A human girl raised her hand. But was it right? To ignore the council like that? "That is a question every generation must answer for themselves," Gary said. Humanity did not break the law. We followed every rule, filed every document, met every requirement, but we did it on our terms at our speed. Some people say it was bold. Others say it was arrogant. What do you think? The classroom erupted in discussion. Different perspectives from different species, all trying to understand the moment that had changed the galaxy forever. This was what Gary loved most about teaching in human space. The mixing of ideas, the exchange of viewpoints, the learning that happened when different cultures met. Back on Earth, an old woman named Margaret Cole sat in a park, watching children play. She was 93 years old now, one of the few remaining members of the original Colonial Planning Office. She had helped design the strategy that sent humanity to the stars. A young reporter approached her, eager to document first-hand accounts of the Exodus for a historical project. "Ms. Cole, do you have any regrets about how it all happened?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment, her weathered hands folded in her lap. "We did what we believed was necessary. The council meant well, but they did not understand us. They thought we needed to be contained, controlled, shaped into something safe and predictable. But humanity has never been those things. We are explorers, risk-takers, dreamers. We needed room to grow, and we could not wait decades or centuries for bureaucrats to give us permission. Some species still resent humanity for what we did. I know, and maybe in time they will forgive us, or maybe they will not. But we are here now, part of the galactic community, contributing and learning and building something new. That is what matters." The reporter leaned forward. "If you could go back and do it differently, would you?" Margaret smiled. "I would make sure we left even sooner. Every day we waited on Earth was a day we were trapped, limited, unable to reach our full potential. The Exodus was not just about survival. It was about freedom. The freedom to choose our own path, to make our own mistakes, to build our own future." As the sun set on Earth, similar sunsets were occurring on 647 worlds across the galaxy. Human children were growing up under alien stars, learning alien languages, making alien friends. Some colonies were thriving metropolises. Others were small frontier settlements. But all of them represented the same thing: humanity's refusal to be contained. In the council chambers, High Arbiter Zelmoth reviewed the day's events with her staff. The vote to accept humanity had passed, but it had not been easy. Many species still had concerns, still worried about what humanity's rapid expansion might mean for the future. "Do you think we made the right decision?" asked Catherine, her longtime advisor. Zelmoth looked at the star map, at the hundreds of human colonies spreading across the galaxy, like stars in their own right. "I think we made the only decision we could make. Humanity was never going to ask for permission. They were never going to wait for us to decide their fate. By the time we realized what they were doing, they had already done it. Some will say we should have been firmer, should have forced them to follow proper procedures." "And how would we have done that?" Zelmoth asked. "Send fleets to forcibly remove colonists who were following the law? Declare war on a species that had done nothing illegal? The moment we discovered what humanity had done, our choices were already limited. We could accept them, or we could tear the council apart trying to fight them." She turned away from the map. "Besides, look at what they have accomplished. Trade is up. Conflicts are being resolved. New technologies are being shared. Humanity has been good for the galaxy, even if they did not ask permission to be part of it." Catherine nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is the real lesson. The council had grown too comfortable with control. We believed that our slow, careful methods were the only way to maintain peace. But humanity showed us a different path, faster, bolder, riskier. And it worked. It worked this time," Zelmoth corrected. "But it set a precedent. Other species will see what humanity did and wonder if they can do the same. The council will never be able to maintain control the way we once did." "Is that a bad thing?" Zelmoth thought about this for a long time. Finally she said, "I do not know. But I know this: we cannot stop change. We can only adapt to it. And perhaps that is what the council needed most. A reminder that we are not the masters of the galaxy. We are just one part of it." On New Aurora, Governor Helen Price stood on a balcony overlooking the city she had helped build. 10 years ago, this had been an empty world. Now it was home to over 1 million people, a thriving center of commerce and culture. Other colonies had grown even larger. Some had remained small. But all of them were proof that humanity's gamble had paid off. A message came through on her communication device. It was from the council, officially welcoming New Aurora as a recognized member of the galactic community. Helen smiled. Recognition was nice, but it was not why they had come here. They had come here to be free. Free to build, to grow, to make mistakes and learn from them. Free to be human without waiting for someone else to tell them it was allowed. As night fell on New Aurora, Helen looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, on hundreds of other worlds, other humans were looking at other stars. They were building lives, raising families, creating futures that would have been impossible if they had stayed on Earth waiting for permission. The council had hesitated. 6 cycles had passed since the discovery of humanity's great expansion, The Galactic Council was still arguing about what to do, but out in the frontier regions, something unexpected was happening. Humanity was not just surviving. They were thriving, and more surprisingly, they were making the galaxy better. Commander Lisa Shaw stood on the bridge of the Horizon Guard, a human vessel that had been assigned to patrol the frontier near several new colonies. She watched the displays carefully as two large fleets faced each other in space. The Krell and the Morthian clans had been enemies for generations. Today they were on the brink of war. Both fleets are holding position, reported Lieutenant Chris Wade, her tactical officer. No shots fired yet, but their weapons are charged and ready. Lisa opened a communication channel to both sides. This is Commander Shaw of the Horizon Guard. I am transmitting a proposed agreement to both of your command ships. Please review it before taking any aggressive action. On the left side of the screen appeared the Krell commander, his scaled face twisted with suspicion and anger. Commander Shaw, this is not your concern. The Morthians have been mining our asteroid belt for 2 generations. This ends today. On the right side, a Morthian clan leader responded, Your asteroid belt? We were here first. Our ancestors discovered these rocks before your species even had spaceflight. Lisa had heard this argument before. It was the same story that played out across the galaxy. 2 species, both claiming the same resources, both convinced they were right. Usually it ended in violence. Neither of you was here first, Lisa said calmly. The asteroids have been floating in space for billions of years. The question is not who has the right to them. The question is how we can all benefit from them. She transmitted the details of her proposal. The asteroid belt will be jointly administered by all 3 parties. Krell, Morthian, and human. All profits will be split equally. We provide the mining equipment and the expertise. You provide the labor force and security. Everyone benefits and no one has to die today. The Krell commander's scales shifted colors, a sign of deep distrust. Why should we trust humans? You showed up in our space without permission. You built colonies on worlds we might have wanted. And now you presume to mediate our conflicts? Lisa smiled. She had expected this. Because war is expensive, Commander. You have been fighting the Morthians for 2 generations. How much has that cost you? How many ships have you lost? How many of your people have died? And what have you gained from it? She pulled up a survey report. We have analyzed this asteroid belt. It contains enough rare elements to make all 3 of our civilizations wealthy for the next century, but only if we work together. If you fight over it, you will destroy half its value in the process. Explosions, debris fields, contamination from weapons. By the time you win, the prize will not be worth having. The Morthian clan leader studied the report. And what do humans gain from this? Profit, same as you. And something more valuable. Peace in a region where we are trying to build a new home. We need stable neighbors, not constant warfare. It took 3 days of negotiation. Both sides were stubborn. Both had generations of hatred to overcome. But slowly, carefully, Lisa and her team worked out the details. Security arrangements, mining schedules, profit distribution, dispute resolution procedures. On the 4th day, the first joint mining operation began. Lisa watched as Krell, Morthian, and human workers boarded the same transport ship, heading out to the asteroid belt together. It was strange seeing ancient enemies working side by side, but the promise of wealth was a powerful motivator. This was happening all across human space. Wherever colonies were established, humans were finding practical solutions to old problems. They did not have the advanced technology of the Vorians or the ancient wisdom of the Xerians, but they had something else that proved just as valuable. They had fresh eyes. They looked at problems that had existed for generations and asked simple questions. Why are you fighting? What do you both want? How can everyone get what they need? In the council chambers back at headquarters, High Arbiter Zelmoth reviewed reports from across the galaxy. She had been skeptical of humanity from the start, worried about their aggressive nature and their refusal to follow proper procedures. But these reports were forcing her to reconsider. Humans had mediated 17 territorial disputes in the past 6 cycles. They had opened new trade routes that benefited dozens of species. They had shared technology with struggling colonies and provided food aid to planets suffering from crop failures. This was not the behavior of an aggressive, dangerous species. Her advisor, a Vorian scholar named Kethryn, entered her office with more reports. The humans continue to surprise us, he said. How so? 3 more disputes resolved this week. And look at this. He pulled up economic data. Trade volume in sectors with human colonies has increased by 40%. They are creating wealth, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. Zelmoth studied the data carefully. They are adapting quickly to galactic civilization. More than that, Catherine said. They are changing it. Look at this report from the frontier regions. Before humans arrived, the Krell and Morthians had been fighting for 2 generations. Thousands dead, billions spent on weapons. Now they are working together, all because a human commander suggested a simple solution that no one else had thought of. Or perhaps a solution that everyone else thought was impossible. Zelmoth suggested. The Krell and Morthians have hated each other for so long that no one believed they could work together. But humans did not know that. They looked at the situation with fresh eyes and saw possibilities that others had given up on. Zelmoth stood and walked to the window of her office. Outside, she could see the council headquarters, the heart of galactic civilization. It had stood for 10,000 cycles, a symbol of order and careful progress. But maybe that careful progress had become too careful, too slow, too trapped by tradition. We have been managing this galaxy for a very long time, she said quietly. We have our procedures, our protocols, our ways of doing things. But maybe we have become too comfortable with those ways. Maybe we needed someone to come along and shake things up. The council will not be happy to hear you say that, Catherine warned. The council is already unhappy. Half of them want to punish humanity for breaking tradition. The other half wants to learn from them. We are at a crossroads, Catherine. We can either accept that the galaxy is changing, or we can fight against it and likely lose. Back on the frontier, Lisa Shaw received a new assignment. Another conflict. Another chance to prove that humanity could be a force for good in the galaxy. This time it was a dispute between mining corporations over extraction rights on an ice world. As her ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Lisa thought about what her species had accomplished. They had left Earth not just to survive, but to build something new. They had spread across the stars not to conquer, but to create opportunities. Every colony was a fresh start. Every settlement was a chance to do things better than they had been done on Earth. Humans had learned from their mistakes, from their history of conflict and environmental damage. They were determined not to repeat those mistakes out here among the stars. The galaxy had seen humanity as dangerous, as needing containment. But humans were proving them wrong, not through weapons or military might, but through simple practical solutions and a willingness to try new approaches. When the Horizon Guard arrived at the ice world, Lisa found the situation tense but not yet violent. 2 mining corporations, one Xerian and one Krell, both claiming the same extraction sites, both with legal documents supporting their claims, both ready to fight if necessary. Lisa spent a week studying the situation. She talked to both sides, reviewed their claims, examined the extraction sites, and then she proposed something neither side had considered. There are enough resources here for both of you, she explained, but you are both trying to extract the same elements from the same locations. What if you specialized? The Xerians focus on heavy water extraction, which you are better at. The Krell focus on mineral deposits, which is your specialty. You work different sites, you avoid competing with each other, and you can even trade resources when needed. It was simple, obvious even, but neither side had thought of it, because they were too focused on fighting over what the other side had. The agreement was signed 3 days later. Another conflict resolved. Another step toward a more stable galaxy. As Lisa filed her report with the council, she included a note. Humanity did not ask permission to join this galaxy. We took what the law allowed us to take and we made homes for ourselves. But we are not here to cause problems. We are here to find solutions. Give us a chance and we will show you what we can do. 6 cycles after the discovery of human expansion, the galaxy was starting to see humanity differently, not as a threat to be contained, but as a partner to be welcomed. The council had hesitated, had debated, had followed their careful procedures. And while they hesitated, humanity had not only spread across the stars, they had started making those stars a better place to live. The legal chambers of the Galactic Council had stood for 10,000 cycles. They had seen countless disputes between species, territorial arguments, and trade disagreements. But never had they seen anything like this. For 3 straight cycles, representatives from over 20 species had been presenting cases against human colonial expansion. The chamber was packed. Voices were raised. Tempers were short, and at the center of it all sat the adjudicator, an ancient being whose species had been part of the council since its founding. The adjudicator looked like living stone, gray and weathered, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. He had presided over thousands of legal disputes in his long life. He had always found solutions, always maintained order, but this case was different. Beside him sat his assistant, a young human lawyer named Peter Grant. Peter had joined the council's legal staff 2 years ago, long before anyone knew about the human exodus. Now he found himself in the awkward position of helping to judge his own species. "Explain this to me again," the adjudicator said, his voice like grinding gravel. "How did this happen without anyone noticing?" Peter pulled up a timeline on the chamber's main display. 28 years ago, Earth's government created something called the Colonial Expansion Initiative. They recruited thousands of legal experts and trained them in council law. Every treaty, every regulation, every obscure procedural rule, they studied it all. And we noticed none of this? Earth was under routine observation at the time, not active surveillance. The difference is significant. Routine observation uses automated sensors that check for major changes like nuclear war or environmental collapse. But they do not look for things like legal research or ship construction in the outer solar system, beyond normal sensor range. The adjudicator made a sound like rocks tumbling down a mountain. He was not happy. Continue. While the legal team studied council law, engineers were developing a new faster-than-light drive. It uses a different principle than standard council drives, which is why our sensors did not detect the ship construction. They built the colony ships in the outer solar system, in the space between the planets where we rarely look. Peter pulled up more data. Then they did something very clever. They filed all their legal claims through the most obscure channels in council bureaucracy. Offices that process maybe one claim per cycle, if that, forms that date back thousands of cycles but are technically still valid. They spread the filings across dozens of different offices so no single one saw enough claims to raise an alarm. How many colonies did they establish? 412 confirmed settlements. Another 200 ships still in transit. We expect the final number to be over 600. The chamber filled with angry voices. 600 colonies. It was unthinkable. No species had ever expanded so quickly. Ambassador Thexlar of the Vorian Collective stood up, his 3 eyes blazing with anger. "This is completely unacceptable. The humans have stolen territory that was designated for our expansion. They have violated the spirit of every treaty we hold sacred. The council must act immediately to reverse this situation." "On what legal grounds?" Peter asked quietly. Thexlar turned to glare at him. "On the grounds that they are breaking the law?" "Which law specifically?" Peter pulled up the legal database. "I have reviewed every case being presented today. In each one, the human colonists followed proper procedure. They filed claims on unclaimed worlds. They established settlements within the required time frame. They met every technical requirement. The law was never meant to be exploited this way." "The law says what it says," the adjudicator interjected. "Intent and spirit are matters for philosophers. In this chamber, we deal with what is written." Over the next several days, the adjudicator heard case after case. The Vorians claimed humans had taken 3 worlds from their expansion zone. But the humans had filed claims first and established settlements before the Vorians even surveyed the region. Under council law, first settlement with proper documentation took precedence. The Xerian Dominion argued that humans had violated their cultural heritage by settling near their sacred worlds. But the sacred worlds themselves were protected, not the surrounding star systems. The humans had stayed just outside the protected zone, technically legal even if culturally insensitive. The Krell clans demanded that humans leave a mineral-rich asteroid belt that the Krell had been planning to exploit. But planning was not the same as claiming. The humans had filed proper mining rights and established operations before the Krell had completed their survey. On and on it went. Every case followed the same pattern. The humans had found the exact edge of the law and walked it perfectly. They never crossed into illegal territory, but they pushed right up against the line. Finally, after days of testimony, Ambassador Thexlar had heard enough. He stood up, his tall form towering over the chamber. "This is madness. The Council cannot allow this. We must take action to contain humanity before they spread any further." "What action do you propose?" the adjudicator asked. "Military action if necessary. Economic sanctions, blockades, whatever it takes to force them back to their home system. Peter Grant stood up. He was young, barely 30 cycles old, but his voice was steady. Ambassador Thexlar, I have been authorized by my government to share something with the Council. Something that might help everyone understand the situation better. A document appeared on the main display. It was old, dated 30 years back from Earth's Colonial Planning Office. Peter read it aloud. The Galactic Council operates on consensus and tradition. They move slowly because they believe they have unlimited time. They will see us as aggressive, as dangerous, as needing containment. But we cannot wait for them to decide our fate. By the time they choose to act, we must already be beyond their reach. We will follow their laws exactly, and we will be everywhere. The chamber erupted. Species shouted at each other. Some demanded action against humanity. Others argued that humans had done nothing technically wrong. The noise was deafening. The adjudicator raised his hand and silence gradually fell. You knew. Humanity knew we would try to stop you. So you left before we could decide. You planned this from the beginning. Peter nodded. We learned from history, adjudicator. We studied what happened to other species who waited for council approval. Some waited for decades and were eventually denied. Others were given such strict limitations that they could never truly grow. A few were destroyed by rivals while the council debated what to do. He pulled up historical records, showing case after case of species that had suffered while waiting for the council's slow bureaucracy to make decisions. We could not afford to wait, Peter continued, so we decided to act. Not through violence or deception, but through the law. Your law. We studied it, we understood it, and we followed it. If the law allows what we did, then the problem is not with humanity. The problem is with the law. The adjudicator was silent for a long moment. He had lived for thousands of cycles. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. He had thought he understood how the galaxy worked. But humanity had just shown him something new. Something he had never considered. A species could follow every rule and still break the system. The Council will need time to consider this, the adjudicator said finally. We will reconvene in 10 days. In the meantime, I recommend all parties refrain from aggressive actions. What humanity has done cannot be easily undone, and attempting to do so by force would likely cause more problems than it solves. As the chamber emptied, the adjudicator called Peter back. Tell me something, young human. Do you believe what your species did was right? Peter thought carefully before answering. I believe it was necessary. The Council had decades to make a decision about humanity. We watched you debate, saw how you operate. We realized that by the time you decided to let us expand, we might not have a planet left to expand from. Environmental problems, political tensions, resource depletion. Earth was facing serious challenges. We needed room to grow and we needed it quickly. So you forced the issue. We took control of our own destiny. Is that not what any species would do given the chance? The adjudicator made a sound that might have been a laugh. Perhaps. But most species lack the audacity to actually do it. Your people are either brilliant or insane, possibly both. History will decide which, Peter said. As he left the chamber, Peter felt the weight of what had happened. The Galactic Council was facing a crisis unlike any in its long history. Not a crisis of war or invasion, but a crisis of relevance. Humanity had shown that the Council's careful systems of control could be bypassed by anyone willing to study the rules carefully enough. Other species would learn from this. They would see what humanity had done and wonder if they could do the same. The Council's power had always rested on respect for tradition and the assumption that new species would wait for permission to grow. Humanity had shattered that assumption. They had not asked permission. They had simply taken what the law allowed them to take and dared the Council to stop them. And now, 3 cycles into the legal proceedings, it was becoming clear that the Council could not stop them. Not legally, anyway. The humans had covered their tracks too well, had followed the law too carefully. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his survey vessel, the Pathfinder, and stared at the planet below. According to every map, every chart, every database in the Galactic Council's records, this planet should be empty. It was designated as frontier space, scheduled for exploration by the Vorian Collective in approximately 50 cycles. But the planet was not empty. Not at all. Jake could see the lights of cities on the night side. He could detect power signatures, communication signals, and the heat bloom of industry. Someone had built a colony here, and built it well. "Captain, we are getting a hail from the surface," said Lieutenant Nina Cross, his communications officer. She was young but talented, and Jake trusted her completely. "Put it through," Jake said. The screen flickered to life, showing a woman's face. She looked to be in her 50s, with dark hair streaked with gray and smile lines around her eyes. Despite being caught with an illegal colony, she looked completely calm. "Greetings, Council vessel. My name is Helen Price, and I am the governor of New Aurora. I assume you are here to ask us what we are doing here?" Jake kept his face neutral. As a human who served in the Galactic Council's peacekeeping forces, he often found himself caught between two worlds. He loved his job, but he was still human, still loyal to his species in ways he did not always understand. "Governor Price, this planet falls within Vorian territorial claims. There should not be any settlements here. Can you explain how this colony came to exist?" Helen's smile grew wider. "Captain, with respect, your information is out of date. The Vorians have claimed this sector, but they have not surveyed it yet. They have not sent any ships here. Under Council law, territorial claims must be backed up by actual presence within a reasonable time frame. We filed our claim 3 years ago through the proper legal channels." Jake felt a headache starting behind his eyes. "You filed a claim? With whom?" "With the Office of Frontier Settlement Rights, subsection 12, paragraph 47 of the Colonial Expansion Treaty of Cycle 8472. It is a bit obscure, I admit, but perfectly legal. Over the next several hours, Jake learned the truth that would shake the Galactic Council to its core. Humanity had not just abandoned Earth, they had executed the most coordinated colonization effort in galactic history. While the Council debated what to do about them, humans had been quietly building a massive fleet of colony ships. They used a new type of faster-than-light drive that left almost no detectable trail, and they had sent those ships to hundreds of different star systems all at the same time. By the time the Council noticed that Earth was going quiet, the colony ships were already landing on distant worlds. Jake requested permission to visit the surface, and Helen agreed. As his shuttle descended through the atmosphere, he could see the scope of the colony. New Aurora was not a small outpost or a temporary settlement. It was a proper city with thousands of inhabitants. They had farms, factories, schools, and parks. This was a place meant to last. Helen met him at the landing pad. She was shorter than he expected, but she carried herself with confidence. "Welcome to New Aurora, Captain. Let me show you around." As they walked through the colony, Jake was impressed despite himself. The buildings were well constructed. The streets were clean. People went about their daily lives with the casual ease of those who felt safe and established. He saw human children playing in a park, their laughter carrying on the wind. "How long did this take to plan?" Jake asked. "About 30 years, Helen said. "Maybe a bit longer. Various Earth governments started the planning process when we first made contact with the Galactic Council. We studied your laws, your treaties, your procedures. We learned how the system worked. And then you exploited it." Helen stopped walking and turned to face him. "We followed it, Captain. There is a difference. Every settlement you will find has been established according to Council law. Every claim has been properly filed. Every required form has been filled out. We did not break any rules. We just did not wait for permission we knew would never come. The Council wanted to help humanity develop peacefully. The Council wanted to control us," Helen corrected gently. "They wanted to decide when we could leave our solar system, where we could go, how fast we could grow. They wanted us to wait decades, maybe centuries, for them to finish their debates and their studies. We could not afford to wait that long." Jake wanted to argue, but he could not. He had read the Council transcripts. He knew how slowly they moved, how cautious they were. If humanity had waited for Council approval, they might still be trapped in the Sol system decades from now. "How many colonies are there?" he asked. 412 at last count, Helen said, though more ships are still in transit. "We expect to have over 600 established settlements within the next 5 years. Jake felt dizzy. 600 colonies, spread across how much space? This will cause chaos in the Council. There will be territorial disputes, legal challenges, maybe even threats of military action." "We anticipated that," Helen said. She led him to a building at the center of the colony. Inside was an office filled with legal documents and star charts. "Every colony has a legal team. We have been preparing for disputes since before we left Earth. We know Council law better than most Council members do." She pulled up a holographic display showing a web of legal precedents, treaties and regulations. We found something interesting in our research, Captain. The Council has rules for everything. Rules for how to claim territory. Rules for how to establish colonies. Rules for how to resolve disputes. But they have one big weakness. What weakness? They assume everyone will ask permission first. They assume species will be cautious, will move slowly, will wait to be told what they can do. Their entire legal system is built on the idea that new species will be intimidated by the Council's size and age and power. Helen zoomed in on one section of the legal code. But if you actually read the laws, if you follow them exactly, you can do quite a lot without ever asking permission. You can claim unclaimed worlds. You can establish settlements in frontier space. You can file legal documents through obscure offices that barely anyone knows exist. And by the time anyone notices, you are already too established to be easily removed. Jake sat down heavily in a nearby chair. You game the system? We learned the rules of the game, Helen said. And we played to win. Not through violence or deception, but through preparation and determination. We knew the Council would hesitate. They always hesitate, so we moved while they debated. Some species will see this as an act of aggression. Some will, Helen agreed, but many will not. We are not claiming anyone's existing territory. We are not attacking anyone. We are simply living on empty planets that no one else wanted. In time, I think most species will accept us. They will have to because we are here now and we are not leaving. Jake spent 3 more days on New Aurora, documenting everything he saw. He interviewed colonists, reviewed legal documents, and studied the colony's infrastructure. By the time he returned to his ship, he had a massive report to send back to the Council, but he also had a strange feeling in his chest. Pride maybe, or hope. His species had done something incredible. They had taken control of their own destiny in a way few species ever managed. They had not waited to be given permission to thrive. They had simply gone out and thrived anyway. As the Pathfinder left orbit, Jake looked back at New Aurora one last time. The lights of the colony glowed against the darkness of space, a small spark of human determination on a world that had been empty just 3 years ago. Set course for Council headquarters, he told his pilot, and prepare for a long debriefing. This is going to turn everything upside down. Nina looked at him curiously. Do you think the Council will try to force the colonists to leave? Jake thought about Helen Price, about her confidence and her careful planning. He thought about 412 colonies, each one established legally. Each one defended by teams of lawyers who knew every loophole in every treaty. They can try, he said finally, but I do not think they will succeed. Humanity did something the Council never expected. We read the rulebook and we found a way to win the game before anyone else realized we were playing. The journey back to Council space would take several weeks. Jake spent that time writing his report, trying to capture the scope of what humanity had accomplished. It was not a story of conquest or war. It was something stranger and perhaps more dangerous. It was a story of a species that had refused to wait for permission to exist. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from across the known universe. Beings of every shape and size sat in their designated seats, their voices echoing off the crystal walls. Today's meeting was important. Very important. They were going to decide what to do about the humans. Ambassador Thexlar stood at the central platform. He was a Vorian, tall and blue-skinned with 3 eyes that could see into different light spectrums. He had been studying the humans for the past 20 cycles, watching their development with growing concern. Fellow council members, Thexlar began, his voice carrying through the chamber. We can no longer delay this decision. The humans have discovered faster than light travel. They are building ships. If we do not act now, they will spread beyond our ability to monitor them. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some agreed. Others were not so sure. High Arbiter Zelmoth sat at the highest seat in the chamber. Her crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. She had led the council for 300 cycles and had seen many species come before them. Some were peaceful. Some were not. The humans worried her, but she believed in following proper procedure. We have been watching Earth for 50 cycles, she said. In that time, the humans have fought wars among themselves. They have damaged their own planet. They are aggressive and unpredictable. But they have also shown creativity and determination. The question before us is simple. Do we guide them or do we contain them? A representative from the Xerian Dominion raised his hand. He was an old being, his scales worn smooth with age. I propose we send envoys to Earth. Let us teach them our ways. Let us show them the path to peace, and if they refuse, another voice called out. It belonged to a Krell commander, her armored body gleaming under the lights. If they take our knowledge and use it for war, we cannot risk another incident. Like the Vrath situation, the chamber fell silent at the mention of the Vrath. Everyone remembered what had happened when an aggressive species had been given too much freedom too quickly. Entire star systems had burned before they were stopped. Thexelar seized the moment. Exactly my point. We must establish a quarantine around the Sol system. We allow no ships in or out until the humans prove they can be trusted. It is the only safe option. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some argued for immediate containment. Others wanted to give humanity a chance. A few suggested that the Council had no right to restrict any species from exploring the stars. The arguments went back and forth, round and round, with no clear winner. Finally, Zelmoth called for a vote. All in favor of establishing quarantine protocols around Earth? Lights flickered across the voting board. The result was close. Very close. But in the end, the vote for immediate action failed. The Council decided to send a diplomatic mission first. They would warn the humans, explain the rules, give them a chance to prove themselves. We will reconvene in 30 cycles, Zelmoth announced. By then our envoys will have made contact with Earth and we can make a more informed decision. The Council members began to file out, discussing the vote in small groups. Thexelar felt frustrated but accepted the decision. 30 cycles was not so long. They could afford to wait a little longer. But then something unexpected happened. A young analyst from the Observation Corps rushed into the chamber. Her name was Lyra, and her silver skin had gone pale with shock. She should not have been there. Junior analysts were not allowed in the main chamber during sessions. But the guards let her pass when they saw her face. High Arbiter, Lyra called out, her voice shaking. Forgive me for interrupting, but you must see this. Right now. Zelmoth turned, surprised by the intrusion. What is so urgent that you break protocol? Lyra's hands trembled as she activated a hollow projection in the center of the chamber. An image of the Sol system appeared, floating in the air. But something was wrong with it. Very wrong. This data is 18 cycles old, Lyra explained. Our deep space sensors take that long to relay information from that distance. I was reviewing routine surveillance data when I noticed the changes. Thexelar stepped closer to the projection. What changes? I see Earth, I see the other planets. Everything looks normal. Look closer, Lyra said. She expanded the image, zooming in on Mars. 3 cycles ago, there were 12 human colonies on Mars. Mining operations, research stations, terraforming equipment. She highlighted areas on the red planet. They are all gone, abandoned. Perhaps they moved the colonies, someone suggested. Lyra shook her head and pulled up more images. The orbital stations around Earth gone, the moon base gone, the mining operations in the asteroid belt gone. She brought up communication scan data. No radio signals, no electromagnetic transmissions, no heat signatures from major cities. Earth is still there, but the civilization on it has gone silent. The chamber erupted in confused voices. This made no sense. Where had the humans gone? Had something happened to them? Had they destroyed themselves? Zelmoth felt a cold sensation spread through her crystalline form. Show me everything. Every scan. Every data point. For the next hour, Lyra presented all the information the Observation Corps had gathered. The picture it painted was impossible, yet undeniable. The human civilization that had existed in the Sol system 3 cycles ago was simply not there anymore. Ships were gone. Stations were empty. The cities on Earth still stood, but they were dark and quiet. Could this be a sensor malfunction? Thexelar asked, though he already knew the answer. We checked 3 times, Lyra said. Different sensors, different angles, different frequencies. The results are all the same. Then where did they go? Zelmoth demanded. Lyra pulled up a galactic map. She pressed a command and suddenly hundreds of small red dots appeared across the map. They spread outward from Earth like drops of blood in water. Each dot represented a location where the Observation Corps had detected unusual activity. Strange energy signatures, unidentified ships, new settlements on previously uninhabited worlds, everywhere, Lyra whispered. They went everywhere. The chamber went completely silent. Every council member stared at the map, trying to comprehend what they were seeing. The red dots stretched across thousands of light years. They were in unclaimed space in disputed territories in frontier regions that no one had bothered to explore yet. Thexelar's 3 eyes went wide. This is impossible. No species can coordinate an evacuation of an entire planet, multiple planets. You would need thousands of ships, decades of planning, perfect secrecy. Yet somehow they did it, Zelmoth said quietly. She looked at the map, at the spreading red dots, and felt something she had not felt in 300 cycles. Fear. Not fear of violence or war, but fear of the unknown, fear of a species that had just done something no one thought possible. While we debated what to do about humanity, she continued, while we argued about containment and guidance and proper protocols, the humans were already leaving. They did not wait for our permission. They did not ask for our approval. They simply left. One of the council members found his voice. What do we do now? Zelmoth looked at the map for a long moment. The red dots seemed to glow brighter, each one representing a human settlement on some distant world. The council had hesitated, had followed their careful procedures, had done everything by the book, and while they hesitated, humanity had scattered to the stars. Now, Zelmoth said slowly, we find out just how far they have gone, and we pray to whatever gods we believe in that we can still manage the situation. But deep down, she already knew the truth. The council had lost control of the situation before they even knew there was a situation to control. Humanity was no longer a single planet that could be quarantined or guided. They were hundreds of settlements spread across the galaxy. The debate was over. The decision had already been made, just not by the council. Humanity had decided for themselves.